This week's Parshat Toldot, also known as the Parsha of the twins. My two grandsons, twins, birthday and bar mitzvah Parsha come out on Shabbos Parshat Toldot. Eliezer Raphael and Eitan Nachman. The question arises in this Parsha that how in the house of Yitzchak and Rivka can a Yaakov who represents one way of life and an Esav who represents another way of life, completely and diametrically opposed to each other, how can two such different personalities come from the same home? Now let me backtrack for a moment. Baruch Hashem, that the two twins I'm talking about have chosen to go in the derech of Yaakov Avinu and not his brother. Nowadays, that's a big milah. That shows success in parenting. Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, who raises this question in Trumas HaTzvi, tries to explain it. But first, a little bit about Rabbi Hirsch. He is the founder of the yeshiva, the school of the derech of Torah im Derech Eretz. He lived in Frankfurt am Main and was born December 1888. He was the leader of a great community there in Frankfurt in Germany before the war, and his influence was throughout Europe. He was a scholar, an author, an educator, and above all, he was a Rabban Shel Yisrael. His basic idea was that the good aspects of the culture that Jews live in can also be used to enhance our appreciation and knowledge of Torah. And he raises this question of how a family could raise a Yaakov and an Esav. Think about it. You raise children, they're not the same, they're a little bit different, but so radically different. How does this happen? And the truth is, and the truth be, that Yaakov and Esav were raised, and you'll excuse me for using the expression, in what we would today call a dysfunctional house, a dysfunctional home. And this is basically what Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch alluding to. Yaakov and Esav were raised in a home that was dysfunctional. Rivka is going one way, Yaakov is going another way, and Rivka likes Yaakov, Yitzchak likes Esav, and they play favorites to their children. Yitzchak wants Esav and not Yaakov, and this bothers Rivka very much. And Rivka, being a product of the house of Besuel and Lavan, these are not the greatest people that one would want to make a shidduch into that family, but nevertheless, it was done. And Rivka is considered a tzedekis, but she inherited a lot of the qualities that were not so great, let's put it, from this family of Besuel and Lavan Ha'arami. Ha'arami, if you switch around, is Ramai, is someone who is a trickster, a liar, as we have seen in the Chumash. I'm not saying anything that isn't in the Chumash or anything outside the parameters of what Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch refers to. The basic answer there is that in this house there appears to be no unity. No unity. Rivka goes her way. Yitzchak is traumatized from the Akedah for the rest of his life. Yitzchak is very passive. I mean, let's analyze it a step further. You can put a coat of hair on Esav from Esav on Yaakov, and you could change the language, the speech pattern, but it's still Hakol Kol Yaakov Hayadayim Yidei Esav. The voice still remains the voice of Yaakov, and not Esav. And Rivka thought of this. She came from a house of Ramoim. Arami Oved Avi. If you switch around the letters in Ramai, it's also Arami becomes Ramai, a trickster, a gangster. So Rivka inherits, carries on from the genes of her father, of her brother. These are not people to be taken lightly. So what is the situation here exactly? And I would like to read to you from the Sefer of Rav Hirsch. It's called Trumas Tzvi. It's the Chamisha Chumshei Torah with the Trumas Tzvi, with the translation from Rabbi Hirsch. Let's see what he actually says here. And I'll read in the English translation mostly. For those of you who have the Chumash, the Rav Hirsch Chumash, it's on page 122. And his commentary in Pasuk 28. Another factor which could not fail to have a pernicious effect was the difference between the rearing of their offspring, their attitude toward and love for all their children, including those who are not as good as the rest, find who are in need of particular love and devotion even more than those who are physically ill. This is the cornerstone of all successful child rearing. Incidentally, the fact that Yitzchak's sympathies were with Esav and Rivka felt closer to Yaakov can be also attributed to the attraction of opposites. Rivka came from a house of tough people. Arami Oved Avi, these people were dangerous. And she had enough of it. So she was more attracted to the ways of Yaakov. Yitzchak to the ways of Esav. They had different expectations from each child. Harmony between the parents as regarding the rearing of their children, including those who are not as good as the rest, and who are in need of particular love and devotion even more than those who are physically ill. This is the cornerstone of all successful child rearing. And this was lacking. We have this idealized view of the house of Abraham, the house of Yitzchak, the house of Yaakov. The Torah tells us the positive aspects, and it also doesn't hold back with the negative aspects. The children have to be raised according to their temperament. And this was not regarded in the house of Yitzchak. The house of Yitzchak, there was a lot of deceit, a lot of mischief. I mean, we have to say it the way it is because that's the way it really was, and we have to learn from it. You don't become a Yitzchak HaTzadik overnight. Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'Yakum, it takes a long time for someone to become a tzaddik, for someone to realize all these things. And this is where we learn it from. We learn it from the Torah. Chanoch lanar al pi darcho is what Rabbi Hirsch recommends, and it's what all leading Jewish educators recommend. So what do? There has to be unity in a home. This is the teaching here. When there is unity in the home, it's very difficult. You have to go out of your way almost to raise such two diametrically opposed children. Same mother, same father, same genes. But if there isn't achdus in the house, then the house crumbles. We are told that when parents differ, they should go into another room and discuss it, but not in front of the children. You're not supposed to argue in front of the children. We're told a lot of ways of how to behave, which are difficult to fulfill as parents. Look what happened with Yosef. Yaakov, in the coming parshas, gives Yosef a coat, ketonet pasim. This arouses the jealousy of the brothers. So you learn from this that when you buy something for one child, you have to buy the exact same thing for the second child. Otherwise, there's jealousy. And this is very hard. You have to treat your children equitably and at the same time, al pi darko, according to what they're capable of. So there's a Yaakov and there's an Esav, because that's how they were genetically made. But the parents have the responsibility of raising the children in the right way. And this is one of the most difficult jobs, probably, that a parent faces. Train each child in accordance with his own way. That's from Proverbs 22, Pasuk 6. Rivka and Yitzchak had trouble with this. The parents who raise their children successfully are the ones who have less of this type of problem. There must be unity in a home. If there's no unity, what follows is obviously disunity, which leads to chaos, which chas v'shalom can lead to an attitude and character of Esav. My two grandchildren, who are twins, Eliezer Raphael, Eitan Nachman, were raised in an environment, which I give credit to their parents, where everybody to be on the same page. And they grew up in the proper way and are currently growing in the proper way. This is the lesson of Toldos. Generations. These are the generations. The grandparents, the great-grandparents, the great-great-grandparents. There is a line of how to raise children that goes all the way back. And we have to take this into consideration when we raise our children. Raising children is probably the most difficult task. We don't want to be part of dysfunctional homes. We try to avoid having an Esav and a Yaakov, but at the same time, if the child tends to be more of Esav type character, we still have to show love and care and concern and try to direct the child into the proper derech. This is the message of Parshat Toldot. This is the message of how to raise a child. Chanoch dar al pi darko. Don't try to make an Einstein out of him. Don't try to make a Moshe Rabbeinu out of him. Try to mold him, to direct him, to fashion him in the derech, in the way that he can handle. And that leads to the success. It's hard to learn. Yaakov didn't learn it. He gave Yosef a ketonet pasim. He gave him a multi-striped, very nice shirt, ketonet. And the other brothers were jealous. So that's a basic lesson. You treat each child as an equal. If you can't even give one a blue dreidel, Hanukkah's coming not too far down the road, and give the other one a gold dreidel. You have to give them both the same. You have to show affection to both of them at the same level. It's hard. It's hard. But it has to be done as part of what we would call successful child raising or rearing. This is the key to a successful family. This is the key to raising children to grow up to be good people, good Jews, and to improve society. This is the goal. Shabbat Shalom, V'Shalom al Yisrael.